Kick it off.
Welcome back to another episode of The Runway. I'm your host, Matty Ice. Today I'm here with GDK, my friend Igor, and Jeff. I'm going to let them each introduce themselves. What's going on?
Not much. This is GDK. Looking forward to the end of tax season because it's got me stressed.
I hear that, brother. What's up, Igor?
Not much. Nice to join you guys for the first time here in Naples, which is great.
We're glad to have you. Igor's an expert on real estate. He's done a lot of business deals, so he'll probably have some unique insights on today's podcast. My name is Jeff.
My
What's
name is
going on,
Jeff.
brother?
Good. Just a student to the game. Love Web3. Love blockchain. I'm a blockchain maxi, and I love technology.
I love it. All right, Paul, why don't you get us kicked off with the first take of the day? There's a lot to discuss.
Let's do it. So there has been another discovery made by Doge, and apparently it is in the billions, 150 billions dollars was uncovered in fraudulent.
So let me just cue it up here.
Please do.
Recent investigations have uncovered fraudulent unemployment insurance claims amounting to over $400 million since 2020. These claims include payments to individuals over 115 years old, children between 1 and 5 years old, and individuals who have not yet been born, including one case 129 years in the future. The administration anticipates savings of $150 billion in, I think, financial year 26 by reducing waste and fraud in government spending, attributing these efforts to collaborative work with the cabinet and a team known as Doge. So I think I think the 150 billion number comes from the fact that these are savings that are going to compound each year. If had they not been caught, they would continue to escalate and grow and grow. And that's a lot of times what happens with fraud when people get away with scams and stuff. They just keep running the same scam. But really, this is, a lot of us, to me, this is not unexpected. I think a lot of us knew how bad, how pathetic the fraud and the theft was, and just how disorganized and not on the ball a lot of these bureaucrats are with, especially because it doesn't affect them, right? It's like it doesn't affect you, but it affects all of the tax-paying Americans. So, what do you guys think about that?
Yeah, I just been hearing from a lot of clients that they're just fed up with paying income tax because of this garbage that they're seeing, just getting blasted constantly. They're like, if the money was being put to good use or some stuff, and maybe some of it is, but just the utter disregard for what we're having to pay, and the government treats it like it's nothing because they don't do anything to safeguard it.
Yeah.
So many people are saying, why am I bothering?
I think
why
Joe
am I paying
Rogan actually
anything?
said that on his podcast the other day. He's like, when you see shit like this, it's just like, why the fuck should I pay anything for income tax? It really makes people so angry. It makes me furious. $400 million just this year, people scamming. It's like, literally tens of thousands of people worked their entire lives to pay that tax, and they just stole it and scammed it in 1 year.
Yeah, well, it goes to the adage, government doesn't tax for what it spends what, or I can't remember exactly. It's they don't tax you for what they need to spend. They spend what they can manage to get away with. Butchering the saying.
And
but
you know what's interesting for me? It's like now it's coming up, but it's like what's been happening before, right? It's like how long it's been ongoing.
Oh yeah,
we
all know it's been going on for forever.
And then now it's like it took few groups of people who actually step in and like, okay, let's just look closer. Let's just follow the dollars, and here we are, and see those numbers staggering. And I'm sure there's more and more and more behind it that they just withholding it probably to disclose. So I think we're going to see this coming.
Yeah.
Well, it's also working as a great watershed moment because there's been campaign promises from like the 90s. Even like Clinton was like, oh, we need to fix the fraud and the abuse. Nothing happened.
Yeah.
So like over 30 years, people keep saying, we need to clean this up.
Mm-hmm.
And now that it's finally happening, the bureaucrats are screaming bloody murder.
Yeah. I think we finally got competent people in who can actually do the job. I think that Bill Clinton did campaign and talk about this a lot, and they tried to do some of this, but they just didn't have the people. They had more bureaucrats going in to look at bureaucrats instead of people like Elon, who is on top of shit. People like I think it's Antonio Gracias, who I think he was looking into all of the Social Security numbers that were fraudulently being given to do all these different Medicaid and Medicare claims and basically steal with illegal aliens from the system, put them in so they can vote and do all this stuff.
Yeah,
and
it's something in the last 5 years, like on new 150 million IDs got added.
Yeah, it was all by design. You saw when Biden got in what they did. They just started, creating Social Security numbers for all these illegal aliens that came in, and then they were pushing them, and then they were using those numbers, to essentially claim benefits on all these different taxpayer-funded programs and to vote and to do all this. It's just unbelievable what's been happening.
Do you know what the pushback is on the people that are against this? Because who would really be against this?
Honestly, I'm talking to some people that I have liberal friends, and like they're like literally living in another world. I mean, they're living in a fantasy land. Like I send them this stuff, and they're like, "These are all lies." They're like, "This isn't true. You trust Elon Musk?" It's like, are you fucking retarded? Like, this is public information. It's literally being posted daily. What they're finding, like, they're showing the actual government forms showing this fraud. Like,
you could go to a government website, grab a government report, go to the line item and point at it and say, here, like you're misunderstanding something. This is the real number. And they'll say that's wrong.
That's literally what I'm doing. Like I'm literally posting. I mean, Doge posts literally the screenshots of the reports, and like you can literally see it. It's public information, and like they're just like, oh, it's all lies.
And once in a while they do make a mistake, because even Elon said that we are humans. There may be mistakes that.
I mean, of course, some things
correct it.
But it makes them feel emotionally bad, and they're emotionally invested. They're not looking at this logically.
Yeah, for sure. And then in technology, you know, so basically what they did, they step in with the technology, and technology all of a sudden help them to, you know, uncover all the capital that has been leaving the government. I mean, it's unbelievable to me, you know, to see this that is happening. So, but
I'll take a mistake now in the short term versus another multiple years of the same thing happening. Like, of course, if they're here to correct something and they make a mistake every once in a while.
Well, they're moving fast. I mean, the thing is, you move fast, you break things. I saw something the other day that was like, they were trying to fix something on like the Social Security website or something, where it was like, at all websites you go to, the login button is in the top right corner. Like it just makes sense so people can understand. Everybody knows where the login button is supposed to go. And like on the government run website, they got the login button like on a hidden menu in the middle of the screen, like somewhere hidden. And they were like, Elon's Doge engineers were going in to try to fix this. They're like, hey, like let's move this fucking button to where it's supposed to be, where everybody knows where it is, so old people and everybody can actually access this shit. And they said that's going to take 91 days to put the work order request in to do it. And the Doge people were like, no, we're going to fucking do this right now. And it literally took 30 minutes to do. And they fucking fixed it.
The billion-dollar website that was supposed to be like 600 million or something?
Like, yeah, they're finding like all these scams where it's like, hey, you make a website, here's a contract, it's $100 million. Like, you just can't even make this shit up. I mean, it's so fraudulent. You know, these people should go to prison. I mean, this is unbelievable. Absolutely unbelievable. Look, I think Paul pulled this up. The oldest living American is 114 years old. So it is safe to say that anyone 115 or older is collecting unemployment due to being dead. There was no sanity check for impossibly young or impossibly old people for unemployment insurance. Truly unbelievable that, you know, this is even happening. The incompetence, you know, Senator Mike Lee says reckless incompetence. I think this is criminal incompetence. You know, this is almost criminal.
Wasn't it Murray Rothbard or maybe Milton Friedman? One of those guys was talking about how you have like a quadrant when it comes to spending money. You spend your own money or you spend other people's money, and then you spend it on yourself or you spend it on other people. And government's in the worst position where you don't spend your own money and you don't spend it on yourself. So they don't care. Absolutely, they don't care. And
no doubt,
congressmen are somehow becoming millionaires while getting working a job that pays like $200,000 or something like that.
Yeah, it's kind of crazy. What do we got on the next take, Paul? I want to talk about the pack. Yeah, there we go. I thought this was interesting. So it looks like Pakistan is the next country that's turning surplus power into a digital opportunity. The country plans to tap its 10,000 megawatts of excess electricity to fuel Bitcoin mining and AI data centers. I thought this was interesting.
How do they have 10,000 megawatts of excess power?
Well, it's 10 gigawatts. I'm not sure. That's a good question. Maybe Paul, why don't you grok this and see if you can explain it a little bit better?
Because, like, I know Greenland, they have a lot of thermal activity with the volcanoes. So
but
that's easy to get into.
It's not even, you know, when you're looking at it, when they're saying 10,000 megawatt, they're just trying to get the attention. You know, it's like behind it power. You need to talk about the fiber connectivity, you know, security and you know, all the coolings. Like, you know, they can't just, you know, go in and start all of a sudden say, oh, we have a power, we're just going to become an AI data center or something.
Right. Well, there's more infrastructure, but I think power is one of the biggest limiting factors because, you know, you need to connect it to the internet. You just buy a bunch of fiber and whatnot. It's not going to be cheap, but it's not hard as compared to like building up nuclear power plants for that power generation.
Can you scroll that down the grok window so we can see here? Let's see here. Looks like there's been a lot of fraud and theft in Pakistan for power.
Shocking.
So the question is, I mean, a lot of it may be, you know, flare gas or, you know, renewables that can't be consumed at the time, right? So that's a big part of a lot of this. So you got a wind farm and it's blowing. When the wind blows, you know, you got all this excess power, and maybe at that time the grid is not demanding to use that power, right? So that's probably a component of this. So yeah, it doesn't say too much. It just says they have severe shortages, blackouts, inefficiencies, 16% transmission losses and theft. Wow, making the surplus surprising. So yeah, I mean,
and you see it's coming from coal, hydro, and gas.
Okay,
it's mainly that's where the power is being generated.
Yeah, and hydro is a similar. You know, you might not need to use the power when the.
I understand all that.
The rivers.
Curious how they have Pakistan is not the most developed country, and I'm just shocked they have so much excess electricity.
Yeah, it might be. Maybe it's over the course of the next 10 to 20 years as they develop and put stuff out.
That's such a frustrating way for these websites to keep phrasing things like, oh, it's going to be 10,000 gigawatts or 10 gigawatts over the next 10 years.
Yeah, I mean, 10 gigawatts is not a lot for an entire country. I mean, that's but
right.
Again,
But
I don't know too much about Pakistan. Let's go on to the next story. Let's see here. I think we talked about that one. I like this meme. Yeah, show it. Amazing meme. Should add another villain. An invisible tax labeled regulatory compliance costs. Yeah, there's so many. Regulatory compliance costs is just one of them, right? You got death tax. You've got all these other little
missing
scams.
Payroll tax.
Yeah, you've got all these like little scams that they just cook up. Yeah, they got what's the one where they tax you on just what you own? I can't remember. That's my
tangible property tax.
That's my favorite. Unbelievable. I can't believe they get away with this shit. But funny one. All right, Paul, let's go on to the next one. I just tagged that because I thought it was funny. Here we go. This is wild. So 50, I mean, again, I don't know what, poll this was, but it says 55% of left-leaning Americans say assassinating President Trump would be somewhat justified, according to a Rutgers-affiliated study. I think we're at an interesting time when you've got 55% of a political party saying that it's justified to literally assassinate the President of the United States. Just at a historical moment, it just seems insane to me that people could actually, even whether I didn't like or dislike the president, to say that it's justified to assassinate our own president, it's almost like there's no coming back from that. It's just kind of wild.
And I might have some amount of ability to give him some credit, or if Donald Trump hadn't won the popular vote. He won the popular vote, so the majority of people want this, and yet all the Democrats are saying, oh, we're a democracy, and yet when the democracy spoke, oh, no, you're wrong.
I just think it's just, it goes so beyond that, though. It's like, you believe it's justified to assassinate, to kill the United States president.
If you watch a lot of the interactions, when Charlie Kirk goes on a college campus to talk to people and whatnot, and anytime the leftists starts losing, they immediately resort to some sort of altercation or violence. Because I saw a video where it had somebody talking and she was losing, so she was holding a cup of water and splashes it on the guy. Yeah, just immediately they go to that because they can't defend themselves.
Yeah, it's kind of
crazy. They switch to fear and intimidation.
What does somewhat justified mean?
I don't know what that means. I get.
They could understand it, I guess.
Kind of. It's kind of okay to kill somebody. That's I guess what the take would be. Somewhat justified.
Just the guy who murdered the United Healthcare CEO, Luigi.
Yeah, Luigi Mangione.
Yeah, it's wrong, but I kind of understand it. It's not right, but I get it.
Yeah. I mean, I don't think it's okay to kill somebody.
No, he
disagree with them.
No, he was
money.
wrong. He did If he was the one who did it, he did a horrible thing.
I understand his motivations.
But I get why he would do it.
I understand his motivations with his grandmother and the whole thing. That makes sense to me, his motivations. But I don't agree with it or think it's justified.
Yeah, exactly.
Not even somewhat.
Yeah.
Punch him in the face, yell at him, scream at him. Sure, you're wrong, but killing somebody, shooting him in cold blood with his whole family, that to me is just.
I think it was Charlemagne called it out correctly because it didn't do anything. It didn't change the system at all. All it did was it did nothing except for make everything worse.
Yeah, I agree. Let's go to the next take, Paul. This was great. So this post I found to be really a high value post because it kind of talks about the cabinet meeting they have here, and this is a whole thread. So President Trump just hosted a high stakes cabinet meeting at the White House. One by one, top cabinet members delivered major announcements, directly reporting to the American people. Here's everything you should know, and no joke, it gets crazier the further you read. So why don't we come down here, and there's actually some clips from the recording here, and each one talks about something. So we can kind of go live and kind of maybe even react to some of these clips.
Consumer prices have actually dropped. There's very little inflation. Everybody predicted a lot of inflation, very little inflation. Energy costs are down. Interest rates are probably down. They scatter, but they're probably down. Prescription drug prices are even to down. We're doing very well. It's been amazing. We had a big day yesterday. There'll always be transition difficulty, but we had in history, it was the biggest day in history, the markets. So we're very, very happy with the way the country's running. We're trying to get the world to treat us fairly. This is something that should have been done 25 years ago, and it wasn't. Should have been done 40 years ago, and it wasn't. But no president was willing to take it on, but you had to. It's not sustainable. It wasn't sustainable. And as you know, without a lot of money being added, which is a lot of money that we could add, the country is making approximately $2 billion a day. And when you think of it, we've never done that before, never come close to it. And the number is probably $3.5 billion a day. And that makes us a very strong country. But we have Scott here and Howard and some of the people that are working on deals. And the biggest problem they have is they don't have enough time in the day. Everybody wants to come and make a deal. And we're working with a lot of different countries. And it's all going to work out very well. I think it's going to work out really very well. But we're in good shape. There's no inflation. There's very little inflation. And I went 4 years without inflation, and I took in hundreds of billions of dollars from China and others, taxes in China. But we took in hundreds of billions of dollars a year from China, and we had no inflation, essentially. So we think we're in very good shape. We think we're doing very well. Again, there'll be a transition cost and transition problems, but in the end, it's going to be a beautiful thing. We're doing again what we should have done many years ago.
You can pause
let
it.
it get out of control, and we allowed.
So he's talking about the trade that's occurring and correcting some kind of trade balances. But I think the fact that they're bringing in $2 to $4 billion a day in tariff revenue, that's a lot of money. So kind of interesting.
Trump says he wants to replace the income tax, so he's probably proving he can do it with tariffs. And I just hope that he's able to get rid of the IRS, not just increase the taxes.
Yeah, because it is another tax, right? There are pass-through costs to tariffs, right? Like, obviously, free trade is the more ideal scenario. But if we don't have to pay income tax, I think I would support a 10% across the board tariff.
I mean, some of the open free market things work, but that's only if everyone does it. Like, if we don't have tariffs and they don't have tariffs, then everyone benefits.
No,
but
for sure.
Our stuff gets tariffs and theirs doesn't, then we're just disincentive. Like, we're shooting
Well,
ourselves in the foot.
It does, it does hurt our domestic,
it does hurt
economy for sure. I mean, the domestic manufacturing and all that, and some of these things. And again, we can get deeper into this a little bit later, but maybe there might be some more takes that I flagged. But a lot of these things are like mission critical stuff that like Americans we need to have. If there's a war, there's a problem, we have to have for national security purposes the ability to build ships and to have steel production and to make gunpowder and like all these different things. Like we have to have some protection for domestic industry in case of a war, right? And we've seen this throughout history.
Have you seen some of the AI videos of like American factories now, and it's showing them staffed
a bunch of fat people,
really fat people, like they can barely move.
I
they're
love it.
slow.
Yeah. That's
funny.
people
making joke on it. It's
it's
in
funny.
US. But the tariffs, I got to tell you guys, from the tariff point of view, it's a product that's coming into the country. I mean, unfortunately, most of the Americans got used to cheaper this, cheaper that, and we have a limited amount. I mean, for us to replicate and get into the manufacture and manufacture product at the same cost that it's actually at the shelves right now, it's almost impossible.
It's impossible, for sure.
And right now, we're just going to be paying it across the board for everything. So it's going to be some shortages. It's a temporary, but ultimately, I think the tariff's going to be reduced, and there's going to be some middle ground. It's going to be.
And I think that's what the whole goal was a fair kind of like if our cars are getting taxed or tariffed 100% in Europe and we're not taxing them anything. I mean, that's what's going on here. That can't continue. That's bullshit, right? Like reduce your tariffs and we'll reduce ours, right? I think that's kind of what he's probably getting at here. But the other aspect of this was inflation, which if you've been following all the truflation stuff we've been talking about here, we've seen that inflation is indeed falling drastically, right? So that is a factor here. Paul, can you scroll down to the next one here? We don't have to watch this video because it's interesting to talk about. We can just read it. Signed agreement securing Panama Canal with U.S. military personnel. So this is a big deal as well. I know Trump has really been looking into this. And essentially what was happening there is that China had literally almost essentially taken over that canal.
Yeah,
Like,
no, it's
everything was written in
important, yeah.
Chinese, like, you know, and that's a very important thing if there are conflict or there's problems. And, you know, we literally built that canal and gave them that canal, and like they're charging us millions of dollars every time our ships come through, all sorts of stuff. I mean, it just didn't make sense. So now we actually have troops that are returning to former bases to kind of be on the ground there to counter that Chinese influence. And I think with the world turning multipolar, and you know, you got Russia, you got China, you got all this stuff, and you know, we can kind of be friends and kind of be almost frenemies in a lot of ways. But you know, the world is changing, and it's important to have, you know, a power projection and a presence at some of these key locations. Next one here, Commerce Secretary Howard Lutnick. Countries lining up to negotiate after tariff announcements. Gold card program launches within a week. Potential citizenship pathway previously undisclosed. I don't know if you guys know about that gold card, or we've talked about it here before, but it's fascinating. $5 million and you can get your citizenship. I fucking love it. That's a great way to raise
It's
money.
unbelievable. Yeah,
Yeah, fantastic.
but it's also kind of unfair, right? So it's like you actually selling the citizenships, you know.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like, you know.
I mean, but other countries already do that.
Mm.
I can't. Like, you can get one from Panama or something, or maybe Chile or Argentina. There's several places that all you have
but
to do.
U.S. is like the most sought after citizenships in the world, you know. So it's
Well,
like
yeah, that's why it
everybody
doesn't
wanted
come-
it.
Of
like,
course.
It doesn't
the
come
whole
cheap,
world.
though.
Yeah, it doesn't come cheap, right?
It doesn't
You know?
come cheap, but it's like, you know, it's a kind of disadvantage to the regular people because, you know, like if the guy that has $5 million, they can afford it, he can buy himself a citizenship. But the guy who worked hard all his life and he nothing different than from him than the guy has the money. I mean, it's basically disadvantage for the people that has no money, has no ability to buy himself.
The
That's an
thought
interesting
process
point.
behind it is like, if the guy's managed to create value in order, like $5 million of value in excess, and he can use it to buy a citizenship, we want the man to come here and generate value. Now, if he
Spend
got
the
it
money.
right, but now if he got it because the CCP gave him $5 million so he can come in here and start infiltrating, that's a different problem, and that's something we got to be careful of.
Yeah, but it's usually, you know, the rich people they're not going to come in. They're not going to replace your hardworking people. You know, people that needed, you know, the workman's jobs, kind of thing. So they just gonna, you know, hopefully they can set up businesses or
That's
you know,
kind
create
of the idea.
jobs, and
Create
all that.
jobs,
Right.
create
Right.
value.
If
But
they-
it's like with everything we're
they've
looking into
demonstrated they
the
can.
AI and you know, the whole robots behind it. Is like it's just we see it's going to be less and less people engage in different admin work because AI is pretty much going to come in and replace a lot of that. So right now, it just unfortunately those tools exist right now, and
That is
everybody using it.
That is the argument. I'm going to take the. I think that throughout human history, we've had this problem where, you know, something has changed that might replace certain jobs, and indeed we do lose those old jobs. But usually, when humanity progresses and we find a new technology, it actually ends up creating more jobs than we lose. And I honestly think that AI. A lot of people don't think this is the case, but if you just look at throughout human history, I think that it has shown to be the case, and I don't think AI is going to be any different. I just think right now we can't even imagine the new jobs that are going to exist, exploring the cosmos, you know, colonizing the solar system, creating underwater cities, all these different types of things. Like we can't even wrap their heads around it right now. But I think AI is going to unleash the potential to do a lot of that kind of stuff.
Yeah. So I have to excuse myself. I'll be back.
Yeah, no worries. No worries. Well, yeah, we're just going to continue on and come right back when you can.
Yeah, that essentially will allow the Americans, what we're known for is to use our imagination and potential creativity to like take this technology and create. I heard an interview somewhere where they talked. Someone from China was essentially saying that China, they're really good at studying discipline, but they lack like the imaginations that Americans have.
Yeah.
Right. So I've always heard it best described as the Asian cultures are really good at innovation. The Western cultures are really good at invention. There's two different concepts. So they can take the idea and make it a lot better.
I think we've
but
seen
they
that.
can't come up
Even
with
with
the idea.
even with AI, like that's exactly what we've seen.
Yeah.
Where they innovated with DeepSeek and some of these other models, Manus. But did they initially make the breakthroughs to do the transformer models and all that stuff? No. Like we invented it, America.
Yeah,
and it was invented here.
Yeah.
With a lot of inventions, that's been the case. And I think this is, and then, you know, I think this is part of the whole idea with this trade war with China. When it comes to intellectual property and like, you know, business people inventing things and then going there to produce it. And then, you know, a year later, they've got that same thing made by 100 different Chinese manufacturers for, you know, 1/20th the cost, right? So there's some level of intellectual protection that has a major cost on us. So even though it's not maybe directly tariffs, I think Trump's getting at something much bigger here. And he's indeed correct. I mean, there is absolutely an imbalance there. And some of the things that are justified and allowed by the Chinese culture in a way, right? Like we morally would not think are correct here in America. And indeed, you know, I morally
Oh,
believe
those are
that many of
our
those things-
Christian sensibilities there.
Yeah. So there's an element of that, and I've experienced that even just doing business in China or with Chinese over the years, like just reneging on deals and all sorts of stuff. It's definitely not everybody. It's not every Chinese person, but I would say that it has indeed been the not exactly the exception to the rule, right? So you do have to be careful. And people that I've talked to for years, like, hey, we're doing a business deal, and like we've just been chatting for years, and then like we'll come to terms on a deal, and like okay, like we've agreed on a price, and then about to send the money. Oh, this, that, and the other. It's like we're gonna change it up. Like no, I'm just not gonna do the deal with you if that's how you're gonna behave, right? Like that's not how good business is done, right? But that's just the tip of the iceberg, and I think a lot of people feel that, and I think Trump's getting at something much deeper, which is reciprocity is indeed important, and the rest of the world, just because we're America, has been ripping us off in a lot of ways, right? So let's get something more fair that works for everybody, and we can't sustain it anymore. He is right. I mean, if you look at the United States, the wealth inequality, the income gap has grown to such epic proportions that
I think like the top 10% owns 93% of the stock market or something.
I think the
like
top 1% I think owns 50 to 60%, and then the top 10% owns like 93% or something crazy.
Yeah.
The top, like the bottom 25% own like less than 1% of the stock market, I believe, something like that.
Well, it's also, if you look at the ages too, the overwhelming owner of all of the assets are baby boomers.
Yeah.
They have most everything, and then Gen X, and then us millennials, and then I think Gen Z basically has nothing.
Yeah. There's a lot of people who are very cynical, a lot of different, especially the newer generations. What do you have pulled up here, Paul? It looks like Trump repeals the IRS rule targeting DeFi. This is a game changer for all U.S.-based crypto. The law that made DeFi a felony is officially dead. Here's why it matters and how it will impact crypto. I think this is fantastic. I'm glad he signed this bill, and I think this is much of the upside we're getting with with Trump 2.0 and the administration. Just sensible, reduction of regulations that make no sense, and these bureaucrats who are making these things who don't understand what they're even trying to regulate, just doing nonsensical things or doing things maliciously because they just don't like an industry, right? And you could argue that this whole this stupid IRS broker rule was just could be either one of those things, but somebody's implying that the U.S. crypto market cap will increase, which I think is true. It absolutely will. The fundamentals are aligning nicely. All right, let's go to the next post. Let's go to the next post. Let's see here. Go up to, I think that was actually the Rogan.
Is when people say that. What's really
That's what we're
crazy to
talking
me
about.
is when people say the rich should pay more taxes. Okay, fine. But where do you think that's going? Where's that going? Where's the money going? Is the money going to the federal government? Do you think they're good at it? Do you think they're good at managing your money? Have you paid attention to all the shit Elon's fucking uncovered? 37% is when you make over $609,000 a year. That's you, motherfucker.
Well, that's me last month.
This is the thing. It's like, I'm happy to pay tax if I thought that they were doing a great job. But it's just you are being strong-armed into giving money to people that do a really shitty job of protecting your money and investing it in the country. It's a lot of it is going to bureaucracy and bullshit and a bunch of things that you don't have any say in. If you could like opt out of it, if you could like, imagine if you like pick what if you had like a whole tax sheet, would you like your money to go to? Would you like your money to go to overthrowing governments? No. Like, what if the federal government's budget was entirely based on the will of the people? Like, you get to choose. Like, how much of your money you want to put into drone strikes in Yemen? I say I don't want zero of my money going to that.
I think that's that was what I was talking about earlier. And I'm glad I tagged that. But yeah, I think he hits the nail on the head. And to push on that further, with blockchains and stuff that's being developed, there isn't a reason why we can't do exactly what he described, where like people that are paying their tax can actually allocate and see where their money's going. The technology exists now. Like, we are able to kind of do this stuff if you do it transparently on a blockchain and actually see where money's flowing and getting spent. And as a government who is a public entity, it should absolutely be the de facto standard that money is publicly shown. Where is it going? Show it getting paid. You can track it. You can see it. I think that's honestly how it should be.
Could you imagine having a digital wallet that's connected to your taxes where it allowed you to sign contracts and like, oh, I want to pay towards this sign, this sign. And then
I think that's awesome.
Yeah.
So cool. and there's no reason why it shouldn't exist. It should absolutely be a thing.
For sure. And I think that's there's an opportunity there for developers and people that are building on these on this technology to.
JMD says Maddie is almost as hyperbolic as Trump. Inflation is falling drastically. Is it? Do me a favor, and Paul, and go to Trueflation. Go to the Trueflation metric. Actually, you can actually type in on Grok. Ask what the. You can even type in latest CPI print. So yesterday, I believe there was a CPI print. So just pull it up. Just regular web anywhere. Just ask what was the CPI report, and did it come in below expectations? Yeah, not bad coffee. So you'll see here, JMD. The CPI report for March 2025 showed a 0.1% decrease month over month. That's in 1 month on a seasonally adjusted basis, with the annual inflation rate at 2.4%, down from 2.8% in February. Core CPI, excluding food and energy, rose 0.1% monthly and 2.8% annually, the lowest since March 2021. This came in below expectations, as Wall Street had forecasted headline inflation at 2.6 and core at 3.0. So this indeed was absolutely below expectations and some of the lowest inflation that we've seen in a while. And this was predicted by Trueflation. So Trueflation actually is a leading indicator on this, because the government is so bad at what they do. They've reversed engineered their statistics. So Trueflation actually predicted that this is what the print would come in at. And they also said that they're doing a terrible job with how they report it. And they showed the actual inflation, which is even lower right now. Go to at Trueflation on X. You can actually see their, I know I tagged some of their stuff, but let's just go to a search and just search their account. And you can actually see what they have pinned. Yeah, let's see. So there it is, Trueflation. And you can see right here. So where is U.S. inflation heading now? Let's pull up that post. So where is U.S. inflation heading now? Markets call it lower than expected, but here in the Trueflation community, we knew better. It was exactly what we expected. So what they're saying is that they had pre-predicted it, which they did. They definitely showed. They showed weeks ago, hey, this is what this is going to be. Well, low. It's going to be low. It's going to be down. But how do we do it? This video breaks it down clear as day, showing you how we track inflation and what we expect in the coming months. At Trueflation, we process tens of millions of data points daily to update our real-time inflation indicator. Every single day, we ingest fresh data, categorize and validate it, upload it to the blockchain, deliver it directly to you. This relentless approach allows us to detect inflation trends an average of 45 days before BLS prints their numbers. But let's clear up a common misconception. We are not trying to replicate the BLS absolute values. We have our own methodology to measure inflation, one that we firmly believe reflects real inflation. However, because government decisions are based on outdated government data, when we predict BLS CPI prints, we adjust our model in a specific way. How do we predict BLS CPI so accurately? We apply a penalty to our own data. Yes, essentially, we simulate a scenario where our real-time data insights don't exist. We strip away our immediate access to fresh data and align our weightings with those of the BLS. The result, our BLS predictions have been extremely accurate. Over the past 10 months, our forecasts have been an average deviation of just 0.02%, excluding January, when the BLS changed weightings. And while we are happy to know that our community and premium subscribers use our leading indicator for everything from Bitcoin trades and U.S. Treasury bonds to FX markets, one thing still amazes us. The biggest economy in the world spends over $1 billion on an institution, BLS, that uses an outdated methodology just to base one of the world's most critical decisions, monetary policy changes, on its lagging numbers. Meanwhile, a team of 18 people, myself included, the Trueflation intern, working with less than 1% of that budget, is beating them by almost 2 months. Why can only speculate, but one thing is certain. We will always keep exposing real inflation. We will always keep spreading the truth. Thank you for your support. And to those saying prices are only going up, yes, prices are still rising. Lower inflation does not mean lower prices. It simply means that prices are increasing at a slower rate. The damage of the past 5 years of compounded inflation is still being felt. Your groceries, rent, and everyday expenses are still far more expensive than they were. And that's exactly why tracking real-time inflation matters. So we know where we're heading and no one lies to us. Trueflation team. Wow, that is unbelievable. So that just makes your blood boil that we're spending $1 billion for shitty, outdated data for the government to calculate this statistic when you've got literally a team of 18 people that's literally predicting this months in advance and doing it for 1% of the cost. I mean, if that just doesn't show you at scale how much money is actually being wasted by the taxpayer. It's almost unbelievable. And I've been following these guys for months, and they've been just on the dot, right, predicting what's going to happen months in advance, more data than the government's getting, and they even use the government's own shitty data to predict exactly what they're going to say weeks before they do. It's honestly hilarious. Honestly hilarious.
Do you remember the alternative that CJ was recommending?
What you're thinking of, Paul, is called Shadow Stats, and what Shadow Stats, I can't remember the guy's name. He does a great job, but what he does is he just uses the metrics that the government used like 10 to 20 years ago, because they keep adjusting the metrics to make themselves not look so bad, to make it look like inflation's not really so bad, so they can keep stealing from people by printing money. So he shows the Shadow Stats, inflation, which is significantly higher than what we're seeing today on the current CPI print. But Trueflation is even better. They're putting all this stuff on a blockchain. They're using actual data to really give you a much more accurate picture. So if you look at their print, you can really see how inflation, kind of how it's tracking, and then you see right now there's a huge disconnect. Even if you look at the most recent print, you can see that inflation is actually coming down a little bit, but you look at their line and they're showing that we're going to be coming down much, much, much more. And they've literally essentially led the way. I mean, if you kind of follow, even over the past couple years, you can see when they showed that inflation was coming down, the government data was lagging greatly to show that it was coming down.
That's impressive.
Pretty impressive. I mean, the data doesn't lie, the numbers don't lie. So, JMD, to answer your question, this is where I'm getting all this information. I'm not just being hyperbolic. Pull up the live chat again. I want to see what else he wrote in there. Oh my goodness. Can you find a graph showing inflation for the last year? Yes, that's what we just we just showed it. So
let's see. I think there was another chat that popped up.
If anybody has any questions, feel free to pop into any of these live chats on any of these platforms that Paul's streaming on. I don't know which ones, but I do know we're streaming on X and Rumble, I think. Let's see here. In point of view, in 2020, you buy the same stocks as members of Congress versus the S&P 500. Yeah, I mean, it's pretty obvious that members of Congress have inside information that they are arbitraging and exploiting to make themselves more wealthy.
There's no transparency for that.
I think there is.
The transparency is they have to report what they buy.
Yeah.
At the end of the year, weekly, or?
That's a good question. Paul, why don't you pull up Grok and ask on this? Because are they doing it in real time before they buy it?
I think it might be weekly or something like that.
See, when do Congress people have to report what they buy? No, you're going to post that as a question for me.
You're posting.
Paul,
you're posting.
You're posting this as a public question.
My apologies.
See, the question is when. Like, I want to know when they have to report. They have to report it before they actually buy it, or they have to. Because if they're reporting what they're going to buy before they buy it, then I actually have no problem with them doing what they're doing. People can just look at it and it's public information. So the whole point would be moot if they actually do that. But I think they do it afterwards. Let's see here. The Stock Act, Stop Trading on Congressional Knowledge Act of 2012. Let's see here. They must file a report within 30 days of a transaction, like buying or selling stocks, or within 45 days of receiving notifications of the transaction. So there's this annual financial disclosure reports by May 15th each year. They must file a comprehensive report detailing their financial holdings, including assets, income, and certain purchases, sales, or exchanges from the previous calendar year. Let's see, real-time disclosure. While not fully real-time, the PTRs and share disclosures are made relatively soon after transactions occur. So I think this is probably the big problem, right? Like I think if you're in Congress, you should be able to buy whatever you want, but I think there may be like 12 to 24 hour notice, 48 hours, somewhere between multiple hours to a couple days notice. If you're going to make a big purchase, say it's like over $10,000 or something like that, and you're going to buy a bunch of stock because you went into a meeting and you fucking found out that this, agency is contracting $1 billion contract with whatever government, whatever, you should have to, before you buy it, it should be public. The public should be able to act on it before you. That's my genuine opinion. I think if they did that, all this would go away.
Or at the same time.
Yeah, at the same time. Yeah, that's one way of it. But I honestly think that they are a public servant and they're benefiting from inside information.
I think it should just be they have to sign over portfolio management to some other company.
Yeah,
they get no rights. And if they want to complain about that, well, then don't run for Congress.
Yeah, I think that's a responsibility
that you're taking on.
I hear what you're saying, Kyle, and I think that that is not a bad idea. I do think that there's a lot of weight behind that. But also at the same time, don't we want the best and brightest people? Like I saw that Sachs had to like sell out, like David Sachs, in order to serve. He had to sell off like a lot of his AI and crypto stuff. And
Well, that's what I'm saying. Like, they don't have to sell it. They just have to put management over into another another person, like a broker, not a broker, but somebody else to manage the portfolio while they're serving their time in Congress.
I think that definitely that could be one option. But the other option of, hey, I'm going to buy this and say give the public a 12 to 48 hour notice of your buy. Hey, this buy is scheduled at this time tomorrow. I like that idea. I think that's
still
public.
Regardless, because they can still buy it at a cheap price, and as soon as they report it, the price is going to go up because now everyone's going to try and buy it.
What I'm saying is, before they do the buy, they have to announce it in advance. Like, hey, tomorrow.
Okay,
like,
you announce you're going to buy it, but then you buy a bunch of put options, and then you cash in on those, or you do a bunch of short sells.
Well, that's what I'm saying. That's obviously illegal. So
there's still
if you're
other ways around
if you're going to buy put options, you have to announce it 12 hours in advance. You see, any financial transaction of whatever you buy, it needs to be announced in advance. And I think this would encourage like, sustainably good behavior in the sense of like, hey, I'm setting up a dollar cost average for Bitcoin for $200 every week, and it's going to be just the same every week. I'm going to buy $200 Bitcoin for the next 4 years, and like just let the public know that, or whether it's Nvidia stock or whatever it may be. If there's a change, you do something, you let the public know in advance because you are a public servant, and the public deserves to know these things, right? So I think if they did that, if there was that transparency and
some actions are denied to servants. So if they're going to be a public servants, maybe they don't get to have the full actions of what they could do in the economy. That's
a valid opinion, right? I think that I could get behind that as well. I just like, if there was two options, I would say you either pick that option or you don't buy something and then let everybody know 30 days later. That to me is unacceptable. We can agree on that. If you still want to participate in the economy and buy whatever, if you give the public an advance notice, then you can't benefit from inside information because it's going public. Everybody knows it. That's my idea. What do you think, Jeff?
Well, how do you think that would deter qualified individuals to run in these positions?
How do I think it would?
We want like the best.
We want the best. Yeah, I mean, I think saying, hey, you can't participate in financial markets for 4 years, like that fucking sucks. I wouldn't want to be a public servant. I still want to, I enjoy looking at, Bitcoin and enjoy looking at my investments and you know what I mean? Like that, and we end up getting people like, what's the guy who's the Minnesota, Tim Walz. We end up getting Tim Walz people who don't own any assets, have no idea what they're talking about, never worked in a fucking private anything. They literally worked as a public servant their whole life. Like
we have that now.
I understand it. It's terrible, right? Don't we want people like David Sachs? Don't we want people like Howard Lutnick? Don't we want people like Scott Bessent? Don't we want people that are like actually intelligent, qualified to like be doing this type of stuff?
Okay, but
Antonio Gracias.
They're not going into these things already, so you have to find a different incentive to try and draw them into these positions. It's not going to be, if they're already not signing up for this, so it's not like.
Well, if you look at what with the Trump administration, people got to the point where they've literally had enough, and like people like David Sachs like literally liquidated like I think $1 billion worth of his crypto assets in his portfolio and just sold them all, so he didn't have to. So there was no potential conflict of interest, and you watched what happened. Like he went in and like they tried to go after him, and he's like, "No, I actually sold all this for this exact reason. Fuck you guys." And he was 100% vindicated and right. Mm-hmm. But it's sad that he even had to do that. Like
right. But he's choosing to be a public servant.
I agree. I hear what you're saying, and I think that's valid. And he made that choice. But all I'm saying is, it acts as a deterrent to most normal people. Like me personally, I would be deterred by that. I'm not going to sell off my fucking Bitcoin because I'm going to go serve the government. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's just ridiculous.
That's what I'm saying. You don't have to sell it. You just have to.
Well, no, I think you actually. I think he had to sell it. I think it was.
That's what I'm saying.
Or maybe he didn't. Maybe he didn't have to sell it. Maybe he just did that to avoid any conflicts of interest. But I hear what you're saying. Yeah, like you turn it over to another man. I think that's kind of how the way it goes now. Except for if you're in Congress.
Did when he.
I think Trump does that all the time.
He signed it over. Yeah. He signed over management of his portfolios because conflicts of interest.
Yeah, of course. That's a respectable thing to do, right? But just a thought. Just a thought. And again, there's shades of gray, and people can have different opinions on it, and no one's right or wrong. So here's a take from Samuel. If you receive government handouts like SNAP/food stamps, you should not be fed garbage food. You should not be allowed to buy garbage food. You should be given basic proteins, carbs, and fats, meat, rice, butter, etc. Why do I want people who aren't doing financially well to eat food that's also bad for them? And it's not government overreach. You're accepting handout. You don't get to decide. I literally agree completely with this take. I mean, and again, the crazy part is like we're serving this poison to these people who have no money and who get obese, have health problems. Who do you think fucking pays for the cost of all those health problems? the fucking taxpayer again is getting double slammed because these people are on Medicaid, they're on Medicare, they're on whatever, all these government programs. They go to the emergency room and don't pay their bills, right? Like when they have a fucking heart attack or whatever. 100% agree with this. Like if you're on food stamps, no, like you should be fed healthy food because literally the taxpayer is paying for your food. If you're hungry enough, you're gonna fucking eat a salad, or you're going to eat, grilled chicken, or you're going to eat, whatever, even steak, like you're going to get good food. You can still get healthy food, right?
Right. The objective is for you to stay alive, essentially, right? Yeah. And junk food is actually having the opposite effect.
Yeah, I mean, it's poison. It's literally poison.
Making them sick.
Yeah.
Right. So if they're on the taxpayer dime, then they should be doing essentially the bare minimum to keep them alive. But it's funny how healthy, we're having to essentially almost, we're almost having to mandate just eating healthy.
Yeah.
Right? It's ridiculous. But that's that influence from all the lobbyists and all the.
Yeah, but this is like trying to have people trying to save people from themselves. I'm not saying we should give them junk food. Not saying that.
Yeah.
But trying to get them to actually eat the healthy food.
It's not a matter of trying. It's, hey, if you're really that hungry and you need this program, like if you're going to fucking eat like grilled chicken and healthy food, or you're going to fucking die.
They're going to take those ingredients, go sell them, get the money, and go buy the junk food.
Yeah, if they were that financially able to do those things and they had that skill set, they would not be in the situation that they're in. They wouldn't be on.
I think there'd be a decent number of them that would do exactly that.
I disagree with that. I think you can buy this. I don't think they're like, if they can buy and sell and do all that kind of stuff, I don't think that they would be on the government dole.
Sure, they can. A bunch of people just do stuff under the table all the time. Yeah.
Yeah, they flip the food stamps for drugs.
That's they flip food stamps for drugs. Yeah.
So there's no reason, if they were doing it for drugs, there's no reason to think they wouldn't do it for junk food. It's a different type of drug.
I don't know. That's maybe you're right. I mean, maybe I'm wrong. I don't know.
The problem is that we've created a welfare dependent state.
Yeah.
At
the very least, someone who's going to be using those food stamps, and they're not going to be buying junk food with it. So
right. No. Like I'm saying, I'm trying to put out, like, you shouldn't be, like, we should not let them buy junk food anyways. Yeah. But the real people that are going to want the junk food, they're just going to take the raw food, sell it, and then go buy the junk food, because you can't save people from themselves.
Right, but the same way they can't buy alcohol with it, like there should be restrictions.
Well, again, you're also incentivizing your by those food stamps that money is going to people producing bullshit, crap, garbage that's unhealthy.
Well, I mean,
right?
maybe
the government is funding and subsidizing Coca-Cola and unhealthy bullshit.
Right, maybe it'll finally incentivize them to go get a job so they can go get back their Dorito chips, which, I mean, I would take that as a consequence.
Good, yeah, absolutely. But I guess what I'm saying is, regardless, the money is going to Coca-Cola, it's going to Doritos and Lay's, it's going to all these, food suppliers who are creating literal garbage, right? Like, so they're literally being subsidized by the taxpayer through food stamps.
Mm-hmm.
How about we subsidize like actual farmers who are making like lettuce and healthy foods? How about that SNAP money, which I think is actually part of the plan right now, because farmers are getting hit pretty hard right now by the tariffs because China's cutting off their food. Well, guess what? If we have a way to get them more money, and a way that's actually healthy and beneficial, the tax dollars that we're paying go to the SNAP program, the food stamps, and they go to buy actual healthy vegetables. Oh wow, we have a new guest on the show.
What's going on?
The producer himself.
I'm filling in real quick for Igor as he is taking an extended break. But I just wanted to touch on this real quick because this is a subject dear to my heart.
I know
I'm very big into incentives, right? That's the Bitcoin motto,
incentives,
right? And so inevitably, if you allow for people, like essentially, welfare is supposed to assist people in times of need, right?
For sure.
People who are looking to reestablish themselves, right? They might have experienced some financial difficulty, whatnot. So there's a social support system in place to catch them so they don't completely collapse, right?
Of course.
But instead of serving that purpose where it's supposed to help them essentially get back on track, it's just allowing them to continue with those bad habits, right? Where instead of incentivizing them to actually adopt some new practice, some new habits, implement some new skills, they're essentially coasting, right? They're the welfare state, their budget increases every year, and so they're not incentivized to actually have real rehabilitation programs in place. And so what we're seeing is the symptom of the broken incentive. And this goes back to that Bitcoin motto, right? If there was a limited, scarce amount of funding available, these government programs would be held accountable to see that those dollars are actually yielding results that they're being
We're seeing this with the
mandated.
homeless situation in California. The budget goes up every year. And so
Exactly.
does the homeless numbers, right?
Right.
And then these executives are getting $1 million salary and all this bullshit. I mean, it's total fraud. Is what it
Right.
is.
And so if we just went back to a hard money standard,
Yeah.
people would actually have to like account for how they're spending that
Mhm.
money because they can't just continue funding something that doesn't work. Right. So I think that this really does, like with all things, you fix the money, we will see that.
Fix the money, fix the world. I mean, it's a great place to start. I mean, it's not like, won't instantly fix everything, but it's a function of the broken monetary system that we're living in right now, where I think Elon even said there's money printers in all these offices. I think he said like they can just write blank checks or whatever. I mean, there's really no real world accountability because all of this stuff. Washington D.C. is a prime example of like this disgusting cesspool of the corruption of money that's occurring, where contractors are getting $10 million to build a website, and meanwhile like 1,000 people worked their whole lives to pay that one bill, right? It's like it's such a broken situation here that it needs to be fixed, right? And if you can fix the money, you can take the government out of the hands of just being able to print money and exploit and extract from people, which they've been doing for so long that it's grown to such a largesse that if we can fix that incentive structure, I think a lot of things upstream of that will be fixed because there will be forced accountability, right? There's no oh, let's just print another 5 trillion this year to 5 trillion because COVID or whatever, you know what I mean? Like they're to just pay for all, and then you look at the money and people ages 1 year old are getting $1 million, and people 129 years old are taking $1 million a year. Like all these little scams, all these little contractor scams, there will be forced accountability because you won't be able to steal from the citizens via the stealth tax of inflation, and then lie to everybody about it with your rigged statistics saying that it's only this when it's really much higher. But that's just one example, right? So
I was keeping your seat warm, Igor.
Igor's hopping back. We got him back in.
Yes, sir. He's a lot better looking than me. I need to up my sleep schedule.
Good luck with the newborn.
Right.
Welcome back,
Elon.
Igor. Welcome back. We're just talking about how ridiculous it is that this is even a discussion that taxpayer-funded SNAP programs are literally, people are allowed to go buy just garbage, like total garbage, soda, all sorts of stuff. Maybe you have a different opinion on that, but my opinion is that if the taxpayers are funding and paying for people to have welfare and to have food, it should be healthy food.
100%.
Because unhealthy kids, unhealthy food, unhealthy kids that are eating sugar and garbage, they're emotionally dysregulated. There's all these other problems, but they're also unhealthy. And then as they grow up, as they age, parents, kids, guess who pays them when they have medical problems? They have all these things,
Yeah.
right? They're also on taxpayer-funded Medicaid, taxpayer-funded all these other programs. They go into the emergency room, don't pay the bill. That's my point.
100%. I mean, let's say even kids like all the cereal, they're saying it's like the cereal has like so much chemicals.
Yeah.
Like the list of chemicals,
Yeah.
it's just unbelievable.
Yeah.
Like that's why they all say white people in Europe is always more skinnier than Europe because non-GMO. It's like Europe uses like 1/10, if not less.
Yeah, like I think Joe Rogan was talking about that like in the last week or month or so, and he thought it was a joke. Like he would go the joke, everyone goes to Europe and they just feel better and lose weight because the food's better. He's like, oh, that's just crap because you're just walking more and whatnot.
Yeah.
And then he went to Italy, got a bowl of pasta or like a pizza.
Yeah.
He's like, and I was waiting for the slump to come afterwards. And I felt fine.
Yeah, Chamath
Yeah.
Palihapitiya talks about this a lot when he goes to Italy with his wife. Like he'll be there for a couple of weeks and he'll come back like 10 pounds later.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, it's really it's like
So-
I experienced the same thing.
Yeah, like this is maybe a job for instead of government coming in with a broken incentive and funding this garbage, funding these people that are making Coca-Colas and all this stuff through the SNAP program. How about we use that to actually fund healthy food and stuff instead, right? Because there is an incentive there, and we're signaling to the market it's okay to produce Coca-Cola and all this garbage because the government's going to come in via
Well,
SNAP,
it's
the
also-
taxpayer is going to pay for all this.
It's even
No.
just down in the baseline
Yeah.
ingredients because pasta is just flour, egg, and
Mhm.
maybe water or something like that. And yet something's wrong with the way we do it as opposed to Italy. So we're using different ingredients. And
Yeah, well, there's all
getting
these
different
other
results.
different things they put into the food that
Preservatives,
Yeah.
probably can cause cancer and all sorts of other problems. Like we need to look into that.
Yeah.
Not only I believe it would improve the cognitive state of our country, but also imagine that, like you were saying, subsidizing like the local farmers or local, how that can help build community as well. Because if you have to go down to your local micro greens farmer grower to pick up some food, that can essentially help your local economy.
Yeah.
Right.
I mean, right now it's like 45 to 60 days that's how long it takes from an egg to get into the store shelf that you're gonna buy. When it'd be a lot better if you could get it like a week old or 2 weeks old
yeah,
instead
no
of like
doubt.
a month old.
Why does it have to be a month?
Just from the farm to the like processing center for washing, packaging, labeling, all that.
I
type
thought
of
you weren't
stuff.
supposed to wash eggs because it.
We do in the U.S. The eggs come with like a film. I don't remember what the word for it is, but it's supposed to be a protective barrier against a lot of the microorganisms. But the FDA or the USDA requires us to wash them, and then that's why they have to get refrigerated.
Why?
That's the rules.
Yeah, is there?
Anti-salmonella type stuff.
Yeah, I got you. Okay.
But
So I just pulled so a buddy of mine in Chicago is actually coming up with this indoor microgreens it's came technology from Netherlands. So in Netherlands there's a floating farm. It's one of the kind in the world, and there's a gentleman that I actually have an opportunity to meet him, and they're actually bringing the Netherlands know-how vertical farming into the inside of the empty office buildings.
I've seen some of that. I saw that in Jacksonville, Wyoming.
Look, this is the picture. So, and I came in like next week I was there, so he gave me stuff to try it. So it's literally like all those microgreens, and the way they taste, it's I never had anything like that.
Wow.
You can literally toss in a bowl and put the balsamic and the olive oil, and it's like
amazing.
perfect salad. It's like so many. It's like 400% more vitamins and microgreens. And
So wait a minute.
Paul's got the science corner for us over here.
You're doing this vertical farming at one of your
his friend,
of your buildings in Chicago.
Well, not in mine, but it's from one of a friend of mine. So it's actually us doing it. So we're collaborating potentially. Having a space for them allocated. So they're doing this old green movement in Chicago. So which actually focusing on downtown Chicago. So
we were talking about your building. What we could do is microgreens in the middle and have a Bitcoin miners spraying the heat or
spreading
servers
heat
or whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. It's,
Here's a fascinating little tidbit about microgreens. John Hopkins at one point actually went all the way up to the Supreme Court to try to get a patent on being able to essentially license the technology for vertical farming of microgreens. And he went all the way to the Supreme Court to secure this patent and then was denied. And thereafter, a lot of this momentum was lost. He was onto what you just said, where the nutrition value is essentially 40 times that of the adult plants in this microgreen, because it's essentially like an embryo of that vegetable.
Kind of like eggs. Why eggs are so nutritious, because they have all that, important nutrients that you need to grow and develop. This is cool. Here's the science thing you pulled up, Paul. Eggs have a natural protective layer called the bloom or cuticle, a thin, waxy coating on the shell. It seals the pores, preventing bacteria from entering and reducing moisture loss, which helps preserve shelf life. Washing eggs removes this layer, so unwashed eggs typically last longer when stored properly. Yeah. That is interesting, yeah.
Yeah. So that's one of the things they're required to do it, so that's why it has to go through all the processing, and so that increases the from farm to table timeline.
And it's a shelf life issue too, So it's like what they do, they because it's a perishable good. So it's the longer it sits on the shelves, the more opportunity they have. Otherwise, the supplier says take it down, and or it's going to be deductible by the retailers to the suppliers of unsold inventory. It's like it's unbelievable. So it's like everything here. It's a shelf life issues for the retail.
Wow. Paul, what you got here? Is this Sam?
Yeah, since we were just talking about his previous post about food stamps, this is a massive accomplishment they just made.
A lot of good stuff happening in Florida right now. Why don't you play the clip? Only 10 seconds.
So we just got done meeting in committee. We didn't get a single no vote. Every single person voted yes on the Bitcoin Strategic Reserve.
Bipartisan.
Progress, baby.
Wow, that's incredible.
So we just got done meeting
completely bipartisan vote for Florida to have a Bitcoin strategic reserve. And Florida, we're one of the only states that have a massive surplus. Like our government here is run so well, so efficiently, and we have a huge surplus here in the state. So
no state tax.
Yeah, no state income tax, and we're thriving. We have a massive surplus.
Don't worry, they get their taxes other ways.
Yeah,
but at least it's not income.
Yeah, other sales tax is fine. I don't mind. Paying
literally, other states should take this as an example.
No doubt.
This should be like a stocking horse kind of discussions. Like this is if one state is so successful, and so why others can't follow?
No doubt about it. No, absolutely no doubt about it at all. Let's go to the next take. Let's see, what do we got here?
I saw the.
So this is kind of wild. Have you guys looked into this at all? This Crossfire hurricane, to make landfall, Cat 5. So, I guess in 2016 they're talking about here that Director Brennan's declassified handwritten notes reflect that he briefed the meeting's participants regarding the alleged approval by Hillary Clinton on 26 July of a proposal from one of her campaign advisors to vilify Donald Trump by stirring up a scandal claiming interference by Russian security services. This is the whole Russiagate hoax. I mean, they just cook all this. They cook all this stuff up. Kind of crazy.
So I got a little theory on this.
No surprise.
I think that this might be the domino to tip over all the others. Right, we're waiting for the Epstein files to be released. We're waiting for the full JFK files, MLK files, 9/11 debriefing, all that. But I really think that if they can take down essentially the George Soros Open Society, Clinton Foundation types who were involved and implicated in this, that could lead to the other dominoes falling as well. What do you guys think?
Well, just quick question. I don't want to derail it from this topic too much. Didn't I hear Tulsi Gabbard said she was going to release a bunch of stuff on
I heard
Epstein?
something about JFK. No, I heard something about JFK.
Okay.
There's more JFK stuff that might come out.
Yeah, she was going to release it soon.
Yeah, I guess I think they're compiling it or getting it all together. There's probably some more hidden stuff. I don't know. I'm here for it. I like to hear it, but
I mean, they just need to get one of them in a good, like, dead to rights basically, and then they can start flipping them on each other.
Yeah.
So then just start trying to go all around the network and just.
I mean, I think this is just politics. I don't think anything's gonna happen. Personally, I think this is just we all knew they were crooked. We all know what was going on. I mean, this is nothing new.
No, I'm gonna echo Tim Pool on this when he says our generation keep on saying nothing happens except for we've had a lot of stuff happen in the last year. There's the attempted Trump assassinations.
Mm-hmm.
There's these terror wars that are going on.
Mm-hmm.
There's a bunch of judges being trying to be activist judges and stopping Trump. There's a lot of crap happening.
Yeah.
Not a lot of it.
I mean, I was reading about that they have the evidence now that all of this the lawfare against Trump, the lawsuits it literally goes back to the White House. Like they've literally uncovered the notes and documents that like, hey, they called these people in to like go target their political opponent. I mean, but this is not surprising. I mean, look what's happening even in France, like right now. Like literally, this is some Russia stuff. I mean, like they're like, we're gonna arrest the leading candidate a couple months before the election. Like she's a criminal.
Right.
It's like, no, let the voters decide. This is total corruption. I mean, this is not democracy, right?
No.
This is bullshit.
Yeah.
So, question: do you guys agree that
Horrible.
Marie Le Pen is a man?
Do I think Marie Le Pen is a man?
I think that was the French
I don't
president's
think Marie Le Pen. No,
Macron.
You're talking about Brigitte Macron.
Brigitte Macron. That's what
I don't think she's a man. Personally, I think that's crazy to me. I'm not.
One thing
I'm not in on that conspiracy. Sorry.
Candace is all in on it.
Candace is all in on that. I think that's a little wild, a little out there, left field. Personally, but
agree.
you're welcome to believe what you want. But I think that's some crazy shit.
Yeah.
Well, regardless, one thing's clear that she has groomed her husband, the president.
Well, no
of
shit.
France
I mean,
since a very
she
young age.
she's like a pedophile. She was like his teacher, and now she's his. Like she was the teacher, and now she married her student. I mean, listen, it is what it is.
It is
They're both
crazy,
happy.
yeah.
They want to live their life. I'm not going to get involved in that personal shit. I think to say that Candace says that she's her dad or something. I mean, that's some crazy shit. But hey, all the power. If you want to believe this shit, go for it. I personally
won't go
don't.
too into it too much.
Yeah, I'm not going to spend 6 hours talking about that. That's some crazy shit. But
Right.
we'll have to do a
it's
whole
just-
episode on it.
I just think that it kind of correlates to what we saw under the Biden era, where we had like a full-blown puppet in the White House, right? And if you look at France, and imagine you have that sort of blackmail on someone, right? They're gonna just be essentially a mouthpiece, a fully controlled asset. And so, in that sense, I can understand how that's a security risk.
I mean, I think it's apparent that she was his teacher. I mean, she was his teacher when he was a kid. I mean, that's obvious, and also like, there's this whole globalist thing is like, it's no secret, right? I mean, look what they did in Canada now. They got the one guy out,
Another one in.
and then boom, they moved this guy from England and they put him over and hey, I'm Canadian now, haven't been here in 10 years, but now I'm the prime minister. I mean, the whole thing, I mean, that's crazy. And he's probably going to win. I mean, that's the crazy part about the whole thing. He's saying all the right things at the right time. They got him on there. And I think Pierre Polivet is down to like, I'll pull that up on Polymarket actually real quick. I think last I checked, Pierre was at like 20%. So, and Pierre was favored to win. And as he should win. But they got to this Mark, this Carney. he's back over. They brought him over from England. Here it is. Pierre's at 25% and Mark Carney's at 75%. I mean, that's crazy. Look at the odds in the induction, right? And Polymarket has a hand on the pulse. It doesn't mean that Pierre can't win or that this might get closer as election gets closer, but right now Carney's in the driver's seat, right? So, and he he was on all these different bank reserve boards. I mean, he literally is a massive globalist. But right now he's saying all the right things. He's saying, oh, I'm going to make a deal with Trump now. And he posted, we're going to negotiate a new trade deal and all this stuff. And, he's posting all the pictures of him, talking to hockey players and putting their hand on their back. And he's got the whole, whoever's running his campaign, they know what they're doing, right?
Yeah, but I can't understand how that's working because it's literally Trudeau's like picked replacement. And everyone hated Trudeau. I mean, my understanding is all the Canadians are upset with Trudeau. So why would you guys go with his hand-picked successor? It doesn't make sense to me.
Yeah,
I just can't wrap my head around that.
It's people are stupid. They I don't know what else to say. I mean, like that's Canada leans to the left. I mean, they always have politically. So they were at some point they were so fed up. They're like, all right, we got to get Pierre in. But now it's it is what it is, right? So, but we'll keep follow the election and see what happens. But
that's why we need Canada to take him over for the 51st state.
I don't think that's going to happen.
Canada.
All right, Paul, grow up a little bit. Let's. There's a couple posts here that I want to talk about before we close it out. We talked about that. Go down a little bit.
We have the
Talked
voter
about
ID.
Canada. Go up. Craig, let's talk about Craig's post here because it's too bad we couldn't get Craig on today because his family is having some surgery. So, but hopefully to get him on next week for sure. But he has a lot of interesting takes and posts and stuff about the tariffs, and he kind of talk about what's going on, and love to argue and debate and discuss with him. Hopefully we can get him on next week. So he says, my X feed tonight is filled with Trump is a genius, Basent is the best. This move was all calculated. They are playing 5D chess. China is totally screwed. Frankly, it seems like media psyops to cover up a major fuck up in the rollout of the tariff policy and effectively an admission that they are taking a loss right here to China in this round of the trade war. There is no way their strategy was always to blow up their own government bond market in order to snuff out various over-leveraged hedge funds and force them to delever, all while also testing the rest of the world to see whether or not they are with us or with China in the new world order that is coming. This mental gymnastics here is ridiculous. Just admit you messed up, got spooked by the bond market, and are now trying to fix things without blowing up the financial system. Speaking the truth would improve credibility. This nonsense here only hurts it, and all trading partners are seeing through the BS. They know now we need deals in order to make markets afloat, so they will offer us very little remedy for adverse trading relationships, and we will have to take it. Seems like an own goal here to me. So there's a lot to unpack there. There's a lot of interesting takes. I mean, he's been, Craig has some interesting thoughts on all this. I don't know if I agree with everything he said, but what do you guys think? Do you think that it's a known goal here? Do you think that anybody want to chime into this before I give my take?
I haven't read The Art of the Deal, but I feel like Trump's doing
exactly
from
what he's doing. That's a lot of people are
the
saying.
Art of the deal.
Yeah. That's what a lot of people are saying is throw out something ridiculous, and then kind of walk it back and then get something. I mean, I think if any country renegotiates a trade deal with us, I think that's a win for the USA, right? If we get better terms from all these countries, how is that not a win, right? Like if they lower their tariffs and their barriers to entry into their markets, or they give us some other kind of concessions, I mean, I think that's an absolute win. I believe that there's 75 countries that have already called that want to negotiate, and most countries did not retaliate because it was warned, hey, do not retaliate. And I think he isolated China, and China is the one that's retaliating. And I think, you're getting an idea here of seeing what's happening. So most countries have agreed to negotiate with us, it seems like. So,
I mean,
devil's in the details.
He did a risky action, and maybe it pays off, maybe it didn't. So far, it's looking like it's paying off pretty well.
Yeah.
Well, it's that 90-day pause that made everybody, assume that he pumped the brakes out of.
Well, see, that's what I thought that was not actually from the White House. Some White House representative was like, an anchor asked him, "Oh, is there any thoughts about actually pausing this or something?"
That was a Bill Ackman from Persian
Bill
Capital who came in and was preaching it to saying it's like hopefully the Trump is going to put the 90 days hold to allow ability to negotiate.
Right.
I'm going to show.
But it's like on the China side, on the tariffs, just going back to the second for that comment. So I mean, China has what $450 billion coming into the United States every year on that, and we have what 150 going out.
Yeah.
And the tariffs. So it's like, and then of course there's a lot of U.S. companies that making product in China and importing it here, and for the consumers. But it's like ultimately it's a consumer's going to pay for it, right? So it's like you see right now they're just adding it. It's called Trump tariffs. So they're just adding it to the price. So it depends on the product.
Yeah.
They're literally creating a line item, like the whole everything that's being sold on the internet, and they're just creating that line item as an expense, as a temporary expense. So it's a surcharge, temporary surcharge in my opinion. So it's not going to be here forever to stay. But 90 days is great in my opinion. So they're gonna renegotiate. Deals gonna get made. China is definitely I think playing hardball right now.
Yeah.
And the question is like, does it make sense for them to do it? Economically.
That's the question. Does it make sense?
I think they're going to start realizing it once their market and currency is going to start devaluing significantly super fast. But I think their power, huge country. So like sometimes there's ego. They're just going to go. It's a communist bloc.
Yeah.
It's kind of like. It's like why should we react right now? We don't have to.
Their markets are already extremely weak, though, from what I've been reading. Like the real estate market is literally on life support.
I think it's actually the only market they actually taking is like kind of strong because the government's supporting it.
The government's supporting it. But what I'm saying is that can't, that's not a real market. I mean, that doesn't work forever, right? Like, something's going to break here. Yeah. I think, that's what happened to the Soviets in a lot of ways. But they said that, yes, it is a tax coming in, but I mean, like. Well, I don't know about your wife. My wife buys so much bullshit, like just random shit that's like totally unnecessary, like all these little widgets from China, all this little stuff, right? Kids, toy. Like, is this really necessary spend? All this money's going back to China. Is that like something like if the price of that toy goes up 5 times, or that little widget?
Do you really need it?
Do we really fucking need that? Like, does it really make sense to buy that? Right?
The next one.
Yeah, and then there's all the money keeps going to China, and does it really make sense? So I think maybe there's a realignment of the American dream and of spending behaviors. Is that a good thing? Is that a bad thing?
Well,
I don't know.
Right now, I'm hearing it's the our dependence on China for medicine and also raw earth minerals. So that is perhaps the bigger issue.
And the chips.
But
chips.
Exactly,
Taiwan is the
Taiwan
main.
is separate.
Yeah.
But hey, Craig Shapiro commented. He's replying in real time.
Oh, he
so
is. Let's hear what he has to say. Let's hear what Craig has to say.
Craig,
I love
the
it.
man, we're missing
Hop
you.
in, Craig. Let's see what you said. The problem is that the only relationship that matters is the U.S.-China one. That is true in a way, but like also, like even our allies, like I talked about earlier, is like, we want to sell our cars in Europe, but they put 100% tariff on our cars, right? Like, those are real jobs that people can do that are manufacturing jobs, manufacturing cars and plants and stuff. Like, is that a fair relationship? Should we revisit that? Like, we did that 100 years, we did that for them 70 years ago, so they could rebuild after World War II, right? Does it still make sense for them to have 100% tariffs on us? Right, like maybe they go down to 10% and then we go up to 10%. Is that a net win for the U.S.? Probably. I think so. So in the long term, like in the big picture, yes, I agree, Craig. Like the major relationship that matters is absolutely the U.S.-China one because it's super important, and there's all these other trade barriers, whether it be the intellectual property stuff or them domestically supporting their companies or requiring them to steal information from American. Like, there's all these other little things that have to do with trade that they do that might not just be tariff specific.
Well, another benefit of this type of stuff happening, even if he does remove any of the tariffs, is it spooks the business owners because now all of a sudden you have an administration that might all of a sudden throw on 100%. So they start. Craig's talking about the supply chain.
You can rely, right? You can rely. You cannot trade. It's like if you have a. So can you imagine right now how many companies have long-term supply agreements with the manufacturers? Like you have a middle guys that's saying like whatever I'm going to supply a small part of something that for manufacturers, and all of a sudden you are 125%.
It's chaos.
Your product is underwater and it's hitting it tomorrow. So it was shipped a month ago. So it's been coming from China and now it's hitting the shores. So what do? You pay 125% and you go back to the to your customer. Say
but it changes the business calculations.
Well, 100%. No, it's put people out of business.
Again, I think this is
even if the tariff gets pulled entirely, the business owner is still going to think, hey, that could happen with this administration. And if we get to the next administration and let's say J.D. Vance is the new president-elect or something like that, they're going to see that same playbook is going to be happening. Yeah. So they're going to have to try and figure out how to ensure against that.
I think what's happening here is more of a one-time major realignment of trade relationships. That's kind of like a Bretton Woods moment. I think this is much more significant than kind of on again. I think it might be a bumpy ride for the next year or two for sure. But I think once it's all resolved, I think there will be more consistent, business stability. I think this is really the shakeup before the midterms. This is Trump. Trump's been preaching about this for like 50 years. He's got the team around him. He's got Scott Bessent, who is whatever you say about him, the guy literally broke the back of the Bank of England. The guy's fucking experienced. He knows what he's doing. He understands this stuff on a deep level. And that was what I was going to ask Craig if you're listening. Why initially what happened was the 10-year treasury yields went under, they immediately started going down, which is what we wanted, right? We wanted to be able to refinance our debt at a lower rate. and that they started to drop like a rock, and then all of a sudden it shot through the roof. I'm just curious why. Was that China actually selling our bonds to try to like fuck us over? That's what I'd like to know. I'm genuinely curious. Maybe Craig, you have a take on that. Just put it in the live chat and we can talk about it. The other thing you wrote here was putting 125% tariffs on China is going to wind up shutting down the country's supply chain and lead to significant short-term inflation. You might very well be right there. We're gonna have to look at the Truflation numbers, and we'll, that's what I'm gonna be looking at. I'm gonna be looking at Truflation's numbers to figure out, is this really happening, right? So Paul, tag Truflation's account on our live stream. Maybe they can provide some more information on
We'll do
what's
right
happening.
now.
Just tag them.
Meanwhile,
That way people can also see where to find them.
Yeah, for sure.
But it's also an important component to not to forget is just that
So-
increase in tariffs. It's going to stop, stop supply at it. But right now, just basically it's a freeze, right? So and then it's gonna, a lot of people is gonna pull back and they're gonna cancel the contracts. They're gonna start supplying it, and then there's gonna be half of the people just not gonna go back into that supply mode because they're gonna be saying it's not predictable unless
you're right. You have a valid point there. My other question though isn't the fact that people will be reconsidering spending on products that are costing a lot more money. Isn't that a deflationary thing? Like, hey, I'm not going to spend this money right now. I'm not going to buy this thing right now. Like, won't that cause a little bit of deflation as a counter narrative? I don't know. These are questions I'm curious about and I'm asking.
Craig just replied in real time.
Let's hear what he said.
We love you, Craig. Let's see. So he actually, surprisingly, I'll pull it up in a second, but Craig actually called precisely what we're seeing happening right now about 6 months ago. So there's a video of him to a T nailing exactly what we're seeing today. So I found that fascinating. But he just
No, he knows what the fuck he's talking about. That's why he's got some great takes. I'm curious to hear what he has to say. I might not agree on everything, but that's what's so cool about having these discussions is, learning and coming to hearing different points. And I have my next post, which will probably be our last one, which I found, which is an absolute gem. It has to do with this tariff stuff and what's happening, but we can read it in a second. Here, let's hear what he has to say. Yields are going up because foreigners are selling all U.S. assets. Okay, so when you say U.S. assets, you mean U.S. treasuries, I'm guessing?
equities. I think probably.
Some are concerned that the U.S. may start taxing foreign holdings of U.S. securities. Interesting. That is an interesting point. It just seemed weird that like the U.S. 10-year Treasury yield went down to like under 4%, and then all of a sudden just spiked up to 4.5%. Something was going on. It was just interesting, and they were trying to engineer that number to go lower. So I think they did. Obviously, the administration failed to do that, from what we've seen so far. They thought they were going to do that, and it just didn't happen. It actually went the opposite way, which was surprising. Maybe that was the straw that kind of broke the camel's back. But also, Paul, why don't you take us to our very next post, which I found, which was actually the best explanation I've seen right there. It's the future economics for what's actually happening right now. And I thought it was incredibly insightful. And, I'm curious, Craig, if you've read this and looked at it. So Sam says, I'm always amused when people are shocked by people doing exactly what they said they do. Everything that has happened over the past week was publicly announced months ago. Stephen Moran, widely viewed as the architect of Trump's trade policy, published a paper, A User's Guide to Restructuring the Global Trading System, in November of 2024, laying out everything that has happened as well as many things that are yet to come. I keep going down. I'm going to read the rest of it. The paper isn't some vague philosophical rant. It's a detailed policy playbook. Almost all trade is denominated either directly or indirectly in dollars. This leads to most countries, as their economies grow, becoming net dollar importers. This leads to trade deficits, or you're going to have to press show more on the post so I can keep reading. Nope, not that one. All of them.
The one above it.
The one above it. They all have it. Yeah. This leads to trade deficits or dollar appreciation against their local currencies, making American exports less competitive. To Moran, this poses an existential threat to America, as dollar appreciation can lead to accelerating financialization of the American economy. Eventually, Americans' hollowed-out economy undermines the dollar status as a reserve currency, leading to the collapse of the dollar system. So I think part of what he's describing here has to do with something called the Triffin's dilemma, which is is a very interesting look at trade and exports, imports, and the global reserve currency status, and this kind of all these things that are pulling on each other. We can kind of unpack that maybe at a later point, and Paul, maybe you can pull it up. But are you going to pull up the Triffin's dilemma right now? You're going to ask Rock about it?
Sorry, I'll do it in a second. Just
Okay.
Craig had one more comment, and he says he has to go coach football now. So
What was his last comment?
he is saying that he's concerned that the U.S. may start.
Yeah,
okay,
we touched
actually,
on
we touched on that.
We touched on that. Yeah.
Yeah,
Cool.
mention it.
Harry Lancet says, "Loving this. What's up, Harry? How's it going, brother?" So go back, Paul, to the to this because this is really well written. So like we don't on the side you can look up the Triffin's dilemma so we can explain it later and talk to people about it while I read this. The paper's most important strategic insight being the global reserve currency. You got to shut off your mic, Paul. The paper's most important strategic insight being the global reserve currency has come at a deep long-term cost. As global GDP grows, it becomes increasingly burdensome for the United States to finance the provision of reserve assets in the defense umbrella, as the manufacturing and tradable sectors bear the brunt of the costs. In short, the U.S. has been subsidizing global growth at the expense of its own industrial base. And I think this is indeed very accurate. And if you look at the wealth inequality gap drastically increasing in America, obviously going off sound money is a major factor in that. If you look up what the fuck happened in 1971 when we went off the gold standard and we can just print money, of course that's part of it. But it's also in a lot of ways, a major problem because it sacrifices our national security, even though we can now print money essentially. The Triffin dilemma. Let's talk about that real quick. So this is important to understand and learn about. The Triffin dilemma, named after the economist Robert Triffin, highlights a conflict in the global monetary system when a single currency, like the US dollar, serves as the world's primary reserve currency. Cliff notes, core issue. The country issuing the reserve currency, example the US, must supply enough of it to meet global demand for trade and reserves. But this can lead to trade deficits and debt accumulation. Conflict. Running deficits to provide liquidity undermines confidence in the currency's value, risking devaluation or instability. Outcome. The system is inherently unstable. Either the world faces a shortage of the reserve currency, hurting global trade, or the issuing country faces economic strain from deficits. Example, the U.S. dollar's role since Bretton Woods, 1944, requires the U.S. to run deficits, but this weakens the dollar's credibility over time. It's a catch-22, global stability versus national economic health. And I think the Triffin's dilemma is an example of why, this is not going to happen overnight, not going to happen over probably even the next decade, 2 decades, but why eventually Bitcoin becomes this global reserve asset, probably because of dilemmas like this that...
Well, I mean, that dilemma only counts if you have a fiat currency because
Yeah,
this dilemma can't
that's the point,
can't develop if you have gold
Yeah.
or Bitcoin or whatever.
Yeah, I think that's the point. But let's continue reading about this. Where are we on here? Did we finish reading that one? Yeah. As global GDP grows, it becomes increasingly burdensome for the United States to finance the provision of reserve assets in the defense umbrella, as the manufacturing and tradable sectors bear the brunt of the costs. In short, the U.S. has been subsidizing global growth at the expense of its own industrial base. Moran views China and the Chinese mercantilist trade policy as an existential threat. China has chosen to double down on its mercantilist, export-led model to secure marginal income, much to the rest of the world's consternation. Moran also recognizes a key failure of previous China tariffs. They were too narrow. To avoid the tariffs, many Chinese companies began exporting goods or components to third countries, engaging in some minor processing and then re-exporting to the United States. So what he's talking about here is like Vietnam and some of these little smaller countries that are there. In other words, Chinese exports to the United States were simply rerouted. Universal tariffs aim to close that loophole by forcing trading partners to choose between China and America. So why start with across-the-board tariffs? Because they reverse the dynamic. Instead of asking for better trade terms, the U.S. grants tariff relief to countries that meet its conditions. Such a tool can be used to pressure other nations to join our tariffs against China. If you're going to have to expand this post here, Paul. If other nations accept the higher U.S. tariff, at least they're paying revenue to the Treasury and limiting the security obligations. Oh, I'm sorry. Went up a little bit. So why start with across-the-board tariffs? Because they reverse the dynamic. Instead of asking for better trade terms, the U.S. grants tariff relief to countries that meet its conditions. Such a tool can be used to pressure other nations to join our tariffs against China. If other nations accept the higher U.S. tariff, at least they're paying revenue to the Treasury and limiting the security obligations of the United States. It's a negotiation starting point. The end goal here is a tiered system. Countries are grouped by currency behavior, IP protection, market openness, security alignment with the U.S. Each tier gets different tariffs. Multilateralism is out. Conditional bilateralism is in. And that's not just a financial imbalance. It's a geopolitical vulnerability. Countries that want to be inside the defense umbrella must also be inside the fair trade umbrella. This is about control of leverage. Market access becomes a tool of foreign policy. This is about building a new trade architecture that reflects American interests rather than global norms. Moran's plan isn't nostalgia for 2018. It's not about one country, one factory, or one industry. It's a reconstruction of global trade with the U.S. market as the key. You're going to have to press show more on the next one. And tariff relief as the prize of entry. It's unclear if it'll work or even if it's a good idea, but at the very least, there is a plan. The only real surprise is that people are surprised. Moran and others have said clearly what they would do. Now they're doing it. Link to the paper. So he actually links the document. You can see it in the link. Maybe you can tag that, in the show notes or whatever in the live stream chats in case people want to go check it out and actually read this for themselves. You could even throw it into, something like Venice AI or another AI tool and have it explain it to you, right? But what I really like is Max underneath this, I think Max and Filafiev. He actually posts here, if you look at it, he goes, here's what's likely coming, bucketing plus forward guidance. So press show more on his post. I love how he put the visual graphic. Implementation of a tariff ladder with scheduled increases for non-compliant countries, bilateral offers and adjustments, negotiations with allies for tariff rollbacks in exchange for concessions in areas like energy purchases and defense cooperation, which is literally all like exactly what we're seeing right now. Targeted measures against countries like China, including increased tariffs and restrictions, currency realignment. So all deregulation, supply chain initiatives, which is also majorly being talked about by this administration. Efforts to encourage supply chain reshoring and reduce reliance on foreign manufacturing. Exactly what we're seeing with, I think $5 to $7 trillion of deals already signed for countries to come manufacture here, high-end chips, all sorts of stuff like that. But if you actually maximize the graphic he posted, so it shows the red line, actually shows, this is the plan if you actually draw it out and look at it. So Moran Doctrine in motion, Trump's trade strategy phases, updated April 2025. So you can actually see phase 0 was the messaging setup. If you look at December 2024 to January 2025, this is not new news. This was being talked about. Then we're in phase 1 here where we do the universal tariff signal, and we start the deregulation of the economy, right? The deregulation, supply chain, Doge cuts, saying, hey, we're gonna deregulate, we're gonna do all these things, we're gonna let business boom, let people do what they want here in the United States, not have 50 government agencies in the way of every single decision, taking 7 years to approve any kind of thing that to happen. We're going to get rid of all that garbage. And then now we're entering April 2025 where it shows the next phase, right? Phase 2 and phase 3, which is the bucketing and forward guidance and also the bilateral offers and adjustments. At the same time, deregulation, supply chain stuff is still going to continue. It's still going to occur. So this is actually part of a plan, part of a strategy, and it seems to be exactly what's happening here. And indeed, we do see that 75 countries are sending delegations to come negotiate better deals, right? So the proof is going to be in the pudding, right? In my mind, it's like I can see why tariffs can be a good thing. I can see why they can be a bad thing. I can see why they're, important for certain national security things, but I can also see how they're an added tax. They can raise prices. So I'm kind of I'm just curious to see how this is all going to play out. But there is indeed, it seems, a plan in place, right? Very interesting to see. Very interesting to see.
Long-term strategy, it's definitely going to work out. So it's short-term, it's going to be pain. It's going to be some little thing. But I think U.S. as a country, they can handle it because
we've got
we have
now.
everything. I mean, it's like from the cars, it's like people, have 2-3 cars in the house on the driveway all the time. It's like, do they need a 4th and 5th one?
Yeah.
Not necessary, right? It's just like, it just, so it's, I think, we'll be fine.
I think Scott Bessent says it best. They said Wall Street's done so well for a long time, but now it's time for Main Street. I love that quote. I think that's fantastic, and I think that hits the nail on the head. Yeah, Paul, do we have any final questions before we?
I've got one final comment here from Bitcoin Day. They say, "Gang, gang."
I love it.
And so, speaking of Bitcoin Day, I think it'd be great to end it on a video that they just pushed out. Let's have a look at that.
Let's do it.
I think it features
Next
someone
Bitcoin
we
Day.
might
know.
know.
We know Larry. So next Bitcoin Day is in Tampa, isn't it? In Tampa, I believe. It's coming up here.
That's right. It's going to be a good one. Yeah. Let's watch this real quick, and I think that could wrap it up.
All right, guys.
They have one tool left. The hammer's the printer, and everything looks like a nail. So we know with absolute certainty that the big print is coming because the alternative is the Great Depression.
Bitcoin offers this adoption of ethics, which is very interesting. I don't think we've ever had a system of economic incentives that encourages us to adopt a particular ethical stance. And that's fascinating to me.
This is not just a money, but this is a global asset that has no holding costs. And although you don't get yield, every year it should at least go up by the value of inflation.
The fight for free speech is the front line, because if we can't question inflation, if we can't question the money freely without getting deplatformed, How else are we going to awaken the masses to the reality that the money's broken?
It's not a matter of like, oh, have you had this career? Do you have this degree? I mean, that's credentialism, which I think is not something we support. We're in Bitcoin, we trust proof of work. Credentialism is proof of stake, and I'm not into it.
I think the best Bitcoin L2 is actually dollars. Never sell your Bitcoin. Simply borrow crappy fiat trash against it and get paid to spend your Bitcoin.
Central banking is just a construct because we allow it to occur.
Your money's not safe here. And so if your money's not safe in America, you're going to stop buying treasuries. That's exactly what we've been seeing now for the last 2.5 years since those sanctions on Russia went into play. Now, that's great for Bitcoin. That's been great for gold. But it's the problem for the U.S. government is that they are going to have to finance these deficits at higher and higher rates of interest.
It's always going to be easy to hit that prayer button.
Our boy.
Power, right? You have this short window of time. So it's a misalignment of incentives, right? Show me the incentives, I'll show you the outcome.
Oh, I know all those people. Bitcoin Day is a fantastic conference. If you haven't checked it out, it's like a one-day event, but it's very intimate. You get to go and meet people. Like if you go to the Bitcoin conference in Las Vegas this year, it's going to be amazing, right? Like it's so much fun. But like I go there and there's so much happening at the same time. It's like 4 people that are speaking at the exact same time in different locations that I all want to see. It's almost overwhelming. But if you go to like Bitcoin Day, just like a one-day conference, get breakfast, lunch, whatever. And you just, you watch a couple panels and you actually get to talk to the speakers, talk to people, ask questions. It's really kind of a cool, intimate experience. So well worth it. And yeah, hopefully.
And we got, the Super Bowl of Bitcoin conferences coming up in Vegas, right? At that event,
it's a great event.
There's so many crazy, awesome things happening at once that you can't attend them all. So what's so special about Bitcoin Day is that you actually get to meet these people in real life and, have a chance to chat with them. So
Maddie, I'll close it out here and just say thanks everybody for listening and hope you got some value, you learned something, and if you liked it, give us a share. It looks like we have over around 2,000 people plus listening right now. So thanks guys, thanks for listening, and give it a share, give it a like, whatever. So follow our page and whatever platform you're on. So thanks so much, guys. It's been a pleasure. Have a great weekend.
All right, see you.
Thank you, guys.
It's a wrap.
Great weekend, everybody.
The runway. The